It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of May 2nd, 1997. We reached the 1997 summer movie season, although technically this isn't the official start. We're still a couple weeks away from Memorial Day weekend, but, I mean, considering where we've been nowadays, this is technically the start of the summer season, honestly, in terms of movies, so I'm just wasting more time here. But we don't need to do that because we've got 7 movies to look at here. We have a lot to get to. Let's just go ahead and jump into it. We'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that is Kurt Russell and Kathleen Quinlan in the action thriller Breakdown. You know, it's hard not to look at this movie and then think of the film The Vanishing, which was, of course, remade by American audiences for about 4 years prior to this with Kiefer Sutherland, Jeff Bridges, Sandra Bullock was in that one. That was my first thought when I saw the trailers for this back in '97. I thought to myself, I saw the video previews for this, and my first thought was kind of that film, The Vanishing. And this film is nothing like The Vanishing. In fact, far from it. In fact, this movie actually is pretty damn entertaining, and it's mostly because of Kurt Russell. He kind of is the desert equivalent to a John McClane character from Die Hard in this. He's very good in the film. Him and Kathleen Quinlan have great chemistry as a couple. J.T. Walsh is great in this film. This was actually the last film that was made before he died, and I can't remember if it was before 98 or just after 98, because he was also in Pleasantville too, and I think that was the last film he ever started before his death. So, after his death, I should say. And this is directed by Jonathan Mostow, who'd go on to have a pretty decent career after this. He directed a pretty underrated submarine thriller, U-571. He also did Terminator 3, which is not that great compared to the other Terminator movies, but certainly a lot better than some of the ones that came after Terminator Salvation, that's for sure. And he did Surrogates, which is a mediocre film at best, with Bruce Willis in it. This is a pretty damn good movie. It's got a lot of good action, a lot of good mystery, a lot of good tension all the way through. I was really surprised when I finally got to see this movie. I did not think it was going to be as strong as it was, as I thought it was coming in here. I thought it was going to be kind of a mediocre thriller, because it was one that not a whole lot of people really bring up nowadays, but as a whole, it's a pretty entertaining movie. It does keep you on the edge of your seat. It does keep you wondering what's going to happen. I mean, is he going to find his wife? Is there going to be some kind of crazy twist at the end or something like that? And they do a pretty good job of playing it straight through. They do a pretty good job of entertaining you, keeping you invested in what's going on. It's a really good film. If you haven't seen this movie, I'd highly recommend checking it out. Breakdown, a pretty damn good movie. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie that we have here, which is probably the most notable movie that came out this weekend in terms of its relevancy in pop culture, and we'll delve more into that with Austin Powers' International Man of Mystery. So there's a lot of interesting little pieces to talk about with Austin Powers. This is Mike Myers' first attempt at a big screen comedy again after 1993 was not the best year for him, with So I Married an Axe Murderer doing poorly at the box office, and Wayne's World 2 not doing so well either in terms of its overall financial status, I should say. Still a fun movie though. So I Married an Axe Murderer a little bit, but this is a movie that comes after he left SNL. I think he was still on SNL through '95, I believe, because I remember seeing him on SNL in some episodes from the '94-'95 season. But this is his first major film he did outside of Saturday Night Live, and I hope to relaunch his film career. And the result is a pretty solid, entertaining movie. Obviously, you could tell this is a parody of the James Bond films, other things from the 1960s, and this is right at the peak when we got the Pierce Brosnan James Bond films. And this was before the spy genre as a whole would get this refreshing look in the years to come with stuff like the Bourne films, and also, most notably, the Kingsman films. But this is a pretty damn good film. It's an entertaining movie all around. It's interesting to see how much of Mike Myers' improvisation comes into play here, because there's a lot of really funny stuff in here. This is based off of a character he played with the band of Ming T, the full 1960s rock band, which also features Susanna Hoffs from the Bangles. And it's funny because there's a lot of things to talk about with this film. For example, you see there, Dr. Evil's not really in the trailer a lot in this, because, like, you just see the back of him, but that was because they wanted to hide the fact that Dr. Evil was also played by Mike Myers, and naturally the end result is a pretty funny character overall, which is interesting because Dana Carvey felt that that character Dr. Evil was copied from a mix of Carvey's impression mostly from his impression of Lorne Michaels, the producer of Saturday Night Live, and he and Mike Myers had a bit of a feud going on a little bit there until they eventually reconciled later on down the road. And I see a little bit of that, and I also see a little bit of Blofeld from the original James Bond movies, which I think that was the intention going into that film. You also notice that, Jim Carrey was going to play Dr. Evil at some point, as Myers didn't want to play multiple characters in the series. Carrey was going to do it, then he turned it down for Liar Liar, which ended up being a big success for him. Rhea Perlman was going to play Frau Barbizon here, and I almost thought it was her when I first saw this movie, but she had to drop it because of scheduling conflicts, and she's regretted ever turning that movie down. The thing that really surprised me was Colin Quinn was going to play Scott Evil, and again, he regretted declining the part, and then eventually went to Seth Green, and that would have been so interesting to see how that would have played out. I mean, Colin Quinn, Seth Green, that's two clearly different people there, but the movie was a big hit, was a funny movie. It's a really funny film. It's silly, it's ridiculous, it knows exactly what it wants to try to do, and there's also a little bit of heart to it. I mean, Elizabeth Hurley, I think, is really good in the movie. Like, she plays kind of the straight man approach to Austin Powers' fish out of water scenario here, and I think their chemistry works so well together, which really stings you when you realize the next film literally starts with her for no real reason being a fembot, and it's never mentioned ever again. But we'll delve more into that when we get to The Spy Who Shagged Me. But this film was a mild success. It didn't do gangbuster business at the box office. I mean, it opened in second behind Breakdown, but it wasn't, especially in the UK, it didn't do very well because when they put this out in the UK, Princess Diana had just died. It happened in 1997, in August of 97, just before this movie was supposed to come out. But thanks to what happened with VHS and DVD sales, the strong word of mouth began to grow for this. And as soon as the second film came out, Austin Powers was pretty much a phenomenon at that point. There was that good 5-year stretch when people really loved this character. You see him everywhere. Everyone's trying to says his catchphrase on TV shows. I mean, he had a lasting impact in a little bit of pop culture. It helped Mike Myers become somewhat of a big movie star at that point. I mean, the end of his run in Austin Powers later eventually led to him doing the Shrek films, it's interesting. It's an interesting story of how Austin Powers went from being this little-known underground hit to becoming this global comedy franchise that everybody really knows about. And even though the sequels are not quite as good as this film, like I said, we'll delve into those as we get to those films eventually. But as far as this movie goes, it's still a great film. Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery, really funny film. Can't recommend it enough if you haven't seen it already. It is legitimately funny after all these years. So, with that said, let us move on to the next movie, and that is Warriors of Virtue. Man, Ronnie, you deserve so much better than this. This was actually his first movie made in America. This was his big directorial debut, and he eventually went on to become a pretty decent horror director. He did Bride of Chucky, he did Freddy vs. Jason, and then he actually did a pretty good Jet Li film with Fearless almost 10 years after this. The movie itself is just pretty bad. I mean, the visual effects are not that good looking. The costume characters aren't that intriguing. The story makes absolutely no sense. You do not like this main character whatsoever. The villain is a little too corny for his own good. There's just nothing really interesting about the story at all, and they really thought that this was going to be the next big thing. I mean, anthropomorphic kangaroos who wield the powers of Tao and battle an evil warlord. I mean, that should be pretty interesting, but in this case, not so much. I don't even need to say any more about that one. The movie pretty much speaks for itself why it failed miserably. So that's Warriors of Virtue for you. So what the hell was that? That's Warriors of Virtue for you. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is Commandments. Another one of those movies that have a lot of potential to it. A funny idea that could make for a really fun black comedy where you have this guy who is just ready to kill himself, and then he just stays alive, and now he plans to break all the 10 commandments to get revenge on God. That should be hilarious in a dark comedy way. And yet this movie isn't like that. I mean, it's not that intriguing, it's not that intelligent, it's it's not even all that funny, honestly. Despite the fact it has a really good cast involved. Aidan Quinn, Courtney Cox, Anthony LaPaglia. It's produced by Ivan Reitman, who produces a lot of good movies. But, it just didn't work. I think the direction they should have gone for it should have been more of a darker black comedy instead of this fun little romantic comedy that's also a little bit of a drama. And I think that was the biggest mistake this movie did. And it definitely shows on screen. It's a film that largely is forgotten. Nobody really ever talks about it all that much, and it's probably for a good reason, because the movie ain't that good. So, yeah, quick one on that one as well. That's Commandments. On to the next movie, and that is Children of the Revolution. Or at least I thought that was Children of the Revolution. I mean, the YouTube video I looked for on that was named Children of the Revolution, but when you look at the page for it here, in fact, let me just show you what it is right now. Take a look at this. So yeah, that's supposed to be Children of the Revolution, and it's got Judy Davis, Sam Neill, F. Murray Abraham, Richard Roxburgh, Rachel Griffiths, Jeffrey Rush, all these notable names in here. So I don't think that was it. Yeah, I can't even find actual footage for that film in particular, so I don't know if that was it or not. But I haven't seen the film, so I can't really say. I don't even have anything really to say about it, honestly. But I wanted to cover it because it came out that weekend, so yeah, that's a first for me, because I don't even know if that clip I showed you was actually from that particular film that came out this weekend, but I got nothing else for you. I don't know what else to say, so that's Children of the Revolution, I think. So why don't we move on to the next movie? Let's see what Kiefer Sutherland's up to with Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. Another movie I never heard of, but Kiefer Sutherland directed it as well. You got a group of crooks, an ex-con, his friend, and a gun-crazy gangster planning a drug heist, but not everything goes as planned, so it kind of fits into the style of these type of neo-noir crime dramas crime films in general that we got during the 90s, like stuff like Reservoir Dogs or Pulp Fiction or all these other knockouts that came out after Pulp Fiction came out. It's got a good cast to it. I mean, Vincent Gallo's also in here, Micheletti Williamson, Sutherland, Kevin Pollak, John C. McGinley, Rod Steiger, Martin Sheen. I mean, notable names in here, but again, I don't really know too much about this, so I don't know if it's any good or not. The reviews for it aren't that too promising, but went straight to video. It went straight to video after a few weeks, and didn't do a whole lot at the box office. So yeah, I don't have anything for you on this one. I got nothing. And this last one should take us no time whatsoever because I haven't seen it either. So let's go ahead and move on to that one. Irma Vep. So this is a very interesting looking film. This is a film about a Hong Kong actress, Maggie Cheng, who plays a fictionalized version of herself as disasters result when an unstable French film director, played by Jean-Pierre Léaud, attempts to remake the classic silent film Les Vampires. And of course, Irma Vep is an anagram for vampire, so I think you can kind of see what this movie ends up becoming. And I guess it has a following to it because they remade this as a miniseries for HBO with the same director and writer that they have on here. So it's got a legacy to it. I've never seen it before, but I gotta say that trailer looks pretty interesting. It looks like kind of like a more comedic version of Shadow of the Vampire with Willem Dafoe and John Malkovich when they is about the making of Nosferatu. So I mean that's just what I see right from the trailer from the get-go. But I don't know. It definitely looks like it has some promise to it. So maybe one day I'll definitely check it out. But that is Irma Vep. So with that said, that wraps up another edition of Time About the Movies. Next time we meet, we'll have 4 movies to look at, including Bruce Willis and Luc Besson's The Fifth Element. We also have Robin Williams and Billy Crystal in Ivan Reitman's comedy Father's Day. We also have Nowhere and Twin Town. So 4 movies to look at next time around, and we'll delve into those on the next episode. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page. Check out the previous episode. Go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this, as well as some other ones as well here on this channel. And I will see you guys next time for another video. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Until then, take care.